So today I'm really excited because I have a special guest, and his name is Dr. Jonny Bowden. You probably heard about him. He kind of is known as a myth buster, but he has a PhD in holistic nutrition, and he also has a certified nutrition specialist degree. And the guy knows his stuff. And I really fell in love with what he had to say because I would always get these really fun emails from him written with his own little swag. And he debunks a lot of myths. You know, if there are certain diet trends or things that just don't sit well with him, he's not afraid to let you know. But we do share a lot in common. And although he does have some input on approaches to eating that may be a little bit different, I think we can all agree that the basis is totally on point. It's about eating real food. And I think you'll appreciate his unique point of view. He is the author of so many books. And in fact, you can find the link to his website here in the show notes. From living low carb to smart fat, the 150 healthiest foods on earth, the most effective ways on earth to boost your energy, the great cholesterol myth, the metabolic factor, the most effective natural cures on earth, and the most effective ways to live longer. Just a few of his titles. I think you're really going to like this one, and you are in for a treat with Jonny. Hi, I'm Mareya, otherwise known as the Fit Foodie. I'm a chef, holistic nutritionist, author, inventor, and mom. And I want to welcome you to my podcast. It's called Recipes for Your Best Life. And with every episode, I'm peeling back the onion on fitness, nutrition, health, wellness, and family. The truth is, you're the chef of your life. And for every important pillar, there's a great recipe worth sharing. So every week, we'll explore them together. Think of it as food for thought that you can really sink your teeth into. So join me, and let's squeeze the joy out of this life, because you only get one. Can I get a fork, yeah? All right. Jonny, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm so excited to have you on.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not going to call myself a stalker because that sounds really creepy, but I have kind of been a fan of yours for quite some time. I had subscribed to your newsletter for many, many years. And then we had the opportunity to connect over our Eat Cleaner products. And I'm just so thrilled that you're giving us this time today. So thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for having me. And may I just give a fast, unsolicited shout out to those Eat Cleaner products, which are on my Jonny Recommends list on my website and which I use on an almost daily basis since I juice, as we talked about offline, and I make fresh vegetable and I call it plant juice. So I am constantly using your products. I love them. And thanks for making them.
That is like the nicest thing ever. Thank you so much. You just made my year. Yeah. So I was really kind of blown away by your story. I mean, and for everybody that's listening right now, we will post in the show notes. You can link to Jonny's website. It's johnnybowden.com. But I was kind of shocked by your story because looking at you now, you are truly the picture of health. And I was surprised to hear of your story of struggle. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think you must be talking about the sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Yes.
And I was pretty much, I've been very public about this, so it's no longer a big secret, addicted to everything that is listed in the PDR. For people who don't know what the PDR is, that's a physician's desk reference. It's about 3,000 pages worth of, text on every drug that's ever been invented and all the side effects and dosing and things. So my joke is that I've been addicted to everything that's in there, but of course I haven't.
My mom was a pharmacist, so I know the PDR well. It's a big, big book for everybody that's visual.
It's a good way to give a visual, right, for the cornucopia of drugs that I have been addicted to in my life. And I always say to audience, and whatever one you're thinking about, wondering if he did that, yep, he did.
That's kind of a crazy place to come from to where you are now. I mean, was there a pivot point that you just said enough is enough?
The thing is, my drug and alcohol addiction were kind of very much they were almost the norm in the profession I was in. I was a musician. I started out as a jazz musician before I got into Broadway and more kind of, structured things. But, in jazz, all the great heroes were heroine acts. I mean, John Coltrane, Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, you name it, Thelonious Monk. I mean, all my heroes. So it was not quite as weird to be, spending a lot of time doing drugs when you were, a professional musician and particularly in that era. We're talking the 70s and we're talking, jazz and associated art forms and stuff like that, where, drugs were very much a big part of the culture. And, I went, having an addictive personality, being sort of built that way, I went whole hog on the whole thing. And between, drugs and alcohol, I was pretty mess. It was pretty amazing to me looking back on it that I made a career out of music and actually managed to make a living doing it.
Well, and you were really successful at it. And so, you took that acumen obviously into where you are now, but there must have been a breaking point.
Well, I was always fascinated with health. I had that kind of, Madonna whore thing going on, like in my own life about like, on the one hand, I was like really interested in being healthy. And on the other hand, I was like the worst. I was in terrible shape. Obviously, I was overweight. I smoked cigarettes. I didn't do any kind of exercise and stuff like that. So, but yet at the same time, I had this kind of really kind of longing to, be a guy with muscles who was in good shape and did all that good stuff. And I think what probably I actually stopped the drugs and alcohol before I got into health and fitness. So there was a period there of sobriety when I was just working as a musician and actually not doing drugs or alcohol. But I still had that kind of interest and longing. And it was kind of fortuitous. What was happening was at that point I was musical directing Broadway shows on things that, on like their road companies and their tours, and we used to call them bus and truck tours and national tours. And so I was actually at the Goodspeed Opera House in Connecticut, and I was music directing a show there. And when you are on the road with shows, there is nothing to do during the day. So after the show has all been rehearsed, it just, packs up and moves to a new city, and then you're pretty much on your own during the day. And there was a lot of free time. And the actors, it's their job to stay in shape. So I had I'm around, all these guys that are, they're in great shape. They're going to the gym. And I was just bored out of my head. So I took the opportunity to say to one of them, I remember, how do you do this weight stuff? Teach me an exercise like that. Yeah. And it literally started like that. And I thought, this is kind of cool. And I started tagging along and going to the gym. And then I put all my addictive obsessiveness into that. And I started going, wait, this is amazing. Like, I'm going to start to change my diet. And now I was not one of those people who had an epiphany and an overnight change. I was one of those guys who would go to the gym, do a set of bench presses, and I'd be the one who goes outside and takes a cigarette break in between sets. So it took me a few years to kind of make the transition completely. But when I really got bitten by the bug, it was a pretty quick descent, as they would say. I went full hog. Within a year, I knew where every gym was and all the towns that, all the cities that we would tour. And and being a kind of upper middle class Jewish New York academic overachieving type, the first thing I thought to myself was, I got to get a degree in this. I love this. This is really good. How do you learn more about how this personal training stuff and this exercise? And, at the time, there was really not much around. There were these magazines, like we used to call it Muscle and Fiction, Muscle and Fitness magazine and things like that. They were all very steroid friendly, and there just wasn't really good information. And I found out that you could actually get certified as a personal trainer. And I thought that would be the coolest thing ever, because they would put that in the Broadway playbill and say, Mr. Bowden, the conductor, is also a certified aerobics instructor or whatever. I just thought it would sound cool. So on a whim, I sign up to get a certification course in personal training, and I take the course, and I'm telling you, it was just like coming home. I loved it. I
So you taught exercise, or did you just go through the instruction?
First, I got certified as a personal trainer, and those certifications are very easy to get, or at least the first one that I got was very easy to get. So it doesn't really make you an experienced trainer, but it does get you a certificate. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I finished that first certificate, I said, this is great. I got to get another one of these. And I wound up collecting 6. I got certified by the National Academy of Sports Medicine, the American College of Sports Medicine, American Council on Exercise, Aerobics and Fitness Association.
Wow.
I got all of them. I got 6 of them. And one day, I am literally walking down in my neighborhood in New York City, and I actually had a New York gig, which was very unusual. As a touring musician, I wasn't at the top echelon. I wasn't doing Broadway shows. I was doing the tours of the Broadway shows, the national tours. So I wasn't like at the top of the profession, but I did have a gig in New York, and it was a show, and it looked like it was going to run there for a while. And so what I did was I passed by this place, and it looked like it was hiring trainers. And there's this big sign that says gym is opening September 1991, and it's called Equinox. Mm. It looks really cool, and they've got a sign that they're looking for trainers. So I've never worked with a client in my life, but I do have my certification. And I walk in, and it's a little upstairs office over what eventually became the first Equinox to open in Manhattan in New York City on Amsterdam Avenue. And there were the owners, the 2 brothers and sister, and they were sitting in makeshift offices, and they were, doing all the construction, doing all the hiring, and doing all the paperwork. And I walked in, and I said, I'm a trainer. I'd like a job here. And God only knows why, but I seemed to connect with them, and they hired me. Mm. And so when Equinox opened its first,
that was their first gym.
That was their first gym in Manhattan. They did have one in Long Island, in the suburbs. They had one small one, but their first foray into Manhattan, the one that got famous, the one that made them Equinox, was on Amsterdam Avenue, and they opened on the Equinox in September, and I was there on the floor. And I remained with Equinox for 7 years as I eventually became the dean of the Equinox Fitness Training Program, which was the kind of the school that they had to hire to train trainers. And it's kind of the model of what they use in the better gyms across the country now. And of course, Equinox became world famous, and they, it's now one of the top gyms in the country, and it's in every city and all of that. But that's where I got my start. And I started as a floor trainer. And the only nutrition education I had was what they taught trainers, which was pathetic. And it was basically all the claptrap from the American Dietetic Association. That was the only people that anybody thought, knew anything about nutrition. So we learned that stuff. And I was an eager follower of that. I was a low-fat guy. I believed in that to my soul. When I started working in the field around 1990, I was an establishment. I was one of those guys when you would order an egg white omelet and it would come with a little bit of the yolks. I'd send it back.
Oh my goodness.
Sure. No, this has some yolk in it. I'm going to get, there's saturated fat and cholesterol. I'm going to get a heart attack.
Cholesterol, my goodness.
I bought it locked, hook, line, and sinker. And, so my journey to where I am now started as being kind of I started very much in the establishment. And what actually happened for me was the evidence of my eyes and senses did not match what I had been taught. And I'll give you an example. So right around 1991, 92, Atkins came out with the 3rd edition of his famous book, The New Diet Revolution, which was, of course, the Atkins diet. Mm-hmm. It was getting a lot of attention, and there was actually beginning to be some research about it that was actually being published. And every one of us trainers thought this was absolute medical malpractice. This guy is telling people to eat fat. He's telling people to eat pork rinds. He is just, why don't they bring him up on charges? Why don't they take his license away? So we all believed that. And yet our clients were very frequently frustrated with the fat advice they were getting and the kind of culture that said, like, if you're not losing weight, just get back on that treadmill and burn more calories.
Right.
And there was also, I'm ashamed to say, a culture among trainers, and it still exists to this day among doctors and health professionals. We figured if it wasn't working for them, they were lying. They were cheating. Nobody was willing to think maybe the shit we're telling them is not true. Maybe the science is wrong. But no, we all figured that, well, if they're on the treadmill for an hour and they tell us that they're eating only these number of calories and they're